How you doing, everyone? It's Kevin. I'm back with another video. I'd like to welcome everybody back to the third part of the oscillating sander build. Now we're going to try to use the most basic tools and basic parts. I'm trying to do this as simple as I can so everyone watching could actually do the same thing if they want to. Now the only problem is I really honestly don't know whether it's going to work. So it's going to be trial and error. So we got a lot to do to get this thing to set up on here. So we'll just have to go with the flow and see how it works out. So let me show you what we got to work with. Now, of course, everybody knows you have the drill press, which we have got cleaned up and it's working great. And so what I have here on the table is I have some washers. I went through some washers and we got some dowel here. We have some, this is 1/8 inch plate steel. That's 1/8 inch plate steel. Of course, we have our chicken spit. And then I have a bigger piece of metal here. This is just an old piece of 3/4. I think this is 3/8. I'm not sure, but we'll get into that later to make sure you get the right size on that. This is what we'll be building our camshaft out of. These plates will be mounting to the top of the drill press to set our stuff on. So we're going to get into it. I think the first thing we want to do is build a plate across the top of the drill press. We want to make sure it's not in the way of anything that needs to move. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is I'm kind of going to eyeball down on this thing where this belt goes across, because we don't want this plate that we put on the top, when we put that chicken spit on there and we do our cam on the other side, we don't want it to interfere in this belt. So I'm just looking down through there to see where it's at and get an idea. I might do some measurements here. So by looking at this thing, it looks like if I keep anything I got outside of here, but of course if we get a smaller belt, this makes it hard because I probably should have had the belt. It looks like my plate's going to end up being about 4.5 inches wide. I think that's going to work. So, one nice thing about it is since we have all of this stuff cleaned up and it moves pretty easy, we're going to be able to pull this stuff off of here so we can get down on the top and work. So we're going to clean the top of this off. I'll get this cleaned off and we'll go ahead and get started cutting that plate. So we ended up going 5 inches by 5 inches on this plate. I know I said 4.5, but I want to give myself a little bit more room. I could always cut it down. It's really hard to add to it. So we have our plate here. This will mount on the top of the drill press, and I'll show you how I mark the holes where they have to be drilled. I apologize for the noise, but I got some fans on. It's pretty cold in here, so I got the fan on and the heater, so it circulates a little bit of air. So what I've done is I just took a piece of paper and set it on top of there, and with my dirty fingers I just pressed in the holes. I don't know if you guys could see that. You can see where each one of the holes go. So we'll use this as a template to drill our holes in that plate. Alright, so what I did is I lined that up on there, that paper, and taped it where I want them holes to go. We had the notch, a little notch over here for this bolt. We still need to be able to tighten this motor down and loosen it up. So we're going to go ahead and get these holes drilled in that plate there. took a center punch and punched those with a center punch before I started drilling, just to make sure the paper don't go anywhere. Looks like we did pretty good drilling them. They're all going in, so that's a good thing. So this is going to give us our base to work off of. So that's a nice sturdy base for where we're going to mount everything. And I still want to make sure that we don't have this belt in the way of anything. And I think even on with this biggest one here, we're still not touching the belt anywhere. That's got to be tightened up, so it's pretty far away. I think this looks pretty good. So now we're going to work off of this plate. We'll figure out what we're going to do next and we'll get on it. Okay, so I cut a plate 3 inches by 3 inches, and this plate is going to be what slides up in here for the motor to rest on, but we got to notch this out for that rod that's going to go across there. So we're going to go ahead and start cutting that out. Alright, our piece for chicken spit motor is mounted on there. We've got a couple magnets holding it in place. We're going to go ahead and tack this on so we can use it as a guide to do the other side. Okay, that should hold it in place now while we work on our other side. The motor will be able to slide down on there. We just got to make sure our shaft is straight. I'm not going to have any bearings or anything on this, so we want it as straight as we can as it comes across. Okay, now I have our piece of dowel. This is 3/8 dowel is what this is. We have a square hole in the chicken spit motor, so we're just gonna take it to the grinder, and we're gonna make this thing square on this end. And I cut this piece. This is just a piece of 1-inch square stock, and it will slide through here like so. And then we want to get it to go right into our chicken spit. And then we will, once we get this all lined up, then we'll adjust the length that we want and where we want it to do the 90 up, because we need this to look like a cam. We need it to move this lever up and down. So we're going to go ahead and square this up, make sure it fits all the way back into the chicken spit, and then we'll get it through here and get our length cut off. Now, if y'all are new to the channel, these 2x72-inch grinders, we actually made these on videos. So there's videos of step-by-step building a 2x72-inch grinder. We built two of them. I have one here and I have one over here. We built both of these on video, and I show you everything that you need to know about building a 2x72-inch belt sander. So this is what we're going to use to square up our end here, and all it has to do is fit in there, and we want it to fit pretty snug. So we have a pretty square end right there, and it fits perfect in there. I think that's going to work great. So we're going to go ahead and clean this up, and we're going to get this welded on here. But first, I want to turn the motor on and make sure that it's not in a bind. I'm not so sure this thing's going to go fast enough, but we'll see. It will definitely turn it. And it's not moving that plate at all, so I think it's going to work. We're going to go ahead and clean this up and get it welded into place. Okay, I think we're set up there good. I turned the motor on. There's no binding in it. We just want to make sure it runs pretty smooth. Lined it up the best that we could. Make sure it's straight with the motor. We're going to go ahead and tack that thing into place. I'll go ahead and turn the motor back on. The motor is spinning. It's very slow, but I think once we get the 2-inch cam on here, I think you'll be able to see it a little better as it turns. It doesn't have to turn fast as long as it's turning. So we'll go ahead and pull these off, and we'll get that welded on there all the way, because I think that's where it's going to stay. I think that looks pretty good. So we'll get it cleaned up and finish welding it. Okay, we have our shaft out now. This is a piece that we ground square, and we're going to put a 2.5 inch cam on this. So we're going to be we're basically right on the 2.5 inch mark. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and weld this together. We want to make sure these are good and straight when we weld them together, as straight as we can get them. So we'll get this cam finished, and then we'll just have to go step by step as we go here. So we're going to go ahead and start. We got the other piece cut for the other side of our cam. We're just going to get it welded on. One thing about a chicken spit, you can turn it off, and if you turn it back on, it'll go the opposite direction. Pretty cool. So, I think we done okay here. I mean, it looks like it's going to work. We need to weld a washer on the inside of this right here because we don't want it to go any further in. But we also got to build a little sleeve with a pin in it right here so it doesn't come out. So let's get the washer welded on here. I think we're done up to this point on that cam. So we're just going to take a washer. We'll slide it on this thing. Slide it back into our motor so we know this is where it's going to be. So we should be able to put a tack on this and keep that straight. Should be fine. Okay, that's all we need on there. Alright, what we're going to do now is we're going to take this rod right here and we're going to bend it right straight with this piece here. We want to get them straight back and forth this way. So we're just going to heat that up. We're going to use a little bit of MAP gas, heat it up, and bend it. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to weld a couple washers on here. One on here and one on here. But we're going to build the little shaft that will connect these two together before we go any further. That way we can hook them up. We want to make sure that these guys line up good, because if not, they get on a bind, they're not going to work. So we're going to cut out the shaft for that. Now for the arm, we're just going to use another piece of this 1/8" steel, and we're going to go ahead and just slice it, drill our 2 holes, and this is going to be about 7.5 inches long. It's an 1/8" thick. Okay, I took the spring off the one side over here, and we're going to go ahead and put our, this is our rod that's going to run the, actually go up and down to make it oscillate up and down. So we're going to go ahead and tack the washers on in the back, and I'm just going to slide a socket up on this thing just to make sure I get this thing straight, because if there's any bind to it, it's not going to work. So we're going to go ahead and get this welded up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a couple holes through these. We'll drill a hole through and put a little pin in it. We don't want this real tight. We want that kind of loose on there. That way it'll allow it to move. Okay, we still have one more thing. We need to put a pin over here to keep this thing from sliding out. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill through this side over here. We're going to put a pin in it. But as of right now, I'm a little bit disappointed in what I've done here, because I think I needed to add another inch to this rod up here. It's only moving up and down just over a 1/2 inch. At 2.5 inches here, it's only moving a 1/2 inch down here. But we're not going to go through all of that. If you guys do this build, you want to make sure you give this rod here, the cam part of it, a little bit longer. That's going to give you more stroke up and down. It's kind of weird because this thing, like with the gears in it, it just doesn't work quite the way you would think. But it is oscillating and it is going in and out, so I think it's going to work, and I think it's going to work just fine. It's not going to take much to make it go up and down. We did take the spring off. We took the little spring off this side over here because we did not want that pressure on there. We want it to just kind of move freely. We don't want to make anything any rougher on this little motor. So we're going to go ahead and drill this side out over here and put our little pin in here. There's not a lot of pressure on it, so I think it'll be fine just drilling a hole and putting a washer on there and another one of these little pins like this right here. Okay, that's my oscillating sander build. Now, do I think it could be done better? Absolutely. Does it need some improvements? I'm sure. I wish it would go just a little bit faster, but it is a chicken spit motor. But it does oscillate. The only issue I had was this rod right here, the bottom rod. I had to heat it up and bend it a couple times because it just wasn't lined up just right. But I think our main thing is to make sure all of our shafts are straight, because if they're kinked or twisted, it's going to make it hard for this thing. It might get on a bind and hold it up. Other than that, I'd like to build a little better table for it. I'd like to get a new belt for it. It definitely needs a belt. Definitely needs a nicer table. But it does work. It just works slow. But it is oscillating. It's going up and down as you've seen in the video. So, and it doesn't seem to slow down when, you know, I put some pressure on the wood. It's still going up and down. And that's pretty easy. You don't need a lot of power up and down because it's actually spinning. It's like a car. If you were spinning the tires on it, you can actually get out back and push the car sideways, one person. So it's basically the same thing. It doesn't take much for it to go up and down. So fun little build, interesting. I just wanted to try it just to see if I can do it, and I think it works okay. I'm going to get some new sanding disc, a new belt for it, a little bit of modifications. I think I can have this thing going pretty good. If you guys are interested, I'll leave a link at the end of this video. You can check out my 2x72" belt sanders. Those really turned out nice. This build here, everything that we used was old or in the junk. Everything. Nothing here was new. Everything we already had right here in the shop. And it's a free sander, so what do you expect for free, right? I would like to tell everyone thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave me thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment if you'd like. Until next time.